All right, Bing Bang. Today is Thursday. It is January 19th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. I am joined by Johnny Stromaglia. Johnny is third generation here. He's a salesman for Supreme Lobster, the second largest seafood distributor in the United States. Johnny, I'm excited. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me on, Eddie. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be fun.
We're going to talk some seafood.
Hey, let's do it.
I love seafood. How many people come up to you? What's the hit rate of people are like, I'm not a big seafood guy, or is everyone like?
No, it's usually the couple. The husband's like, oh, seafood's my favorite, and the wife's like, I don't like seafood, or vice versa. It's either love it or hate it. I feel like you're either a big seafood person, or you won't give it a chance.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into the story here. So you're third generation. Your grandpa's still in the business. He's still running the show over there. Pretty cool. I did not know that Chicago, you guys are up in Lake Villa, is home to the second largest around here.
Yes. So we, in Villa Park, Illinois.
Sorry.
North Avenue in 83. Been there since 74. My grandfather started it in the early 70s. He was an Italian-American immigrant living on Taylor Street, the way every good Chicago Italian boy should be raised, right? Starting on Taylor Street, Little Italy. And he was doing a bunch of different jobs growing up, young, in his early 20s, mid-20s. And found a guy on the East Coast that said, hey, why don't you sell these lobsters? I got lobsters. Everyone wants them. It's a hot new item in the 70s, starting to be really fancy and stuff. Okay, he does it. He starts selling them. First day, sells out, no problem. Bam. Puts them in the trunk of his back of his Lincoln and sells them all in one day. Wow, this was easy. I made some money. This is cool. Does it again the next day. He's got a couple left over. So he goes, what am I going to do with these live lobsters? They're going to die. So he goes to Walmart, buys a kiddie pool, the plastic tub, maybe 4 or 5 foot with a foot high kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Fills it up with good Chicago tap water, puts them in there. Doesn't think about, Chicago water has a lot in it. Salt is not one of them. Mm-hmm. So the lobsters are all dead in the morning.
Okay.
So now everything he just made, now he just lost because he's got a bunch of dead lobsters, and no one wants a dead lobster, right? Mm-hmm. So he had to find out quickly what to do. So he figured out how to put salt. He added salt. He had to get an air bubbler to make oxygen in the water to, have him breathing and stuff underwater. Add the salt, have his own little ecosystem with leftover lobsters. And that's how Supreme Lobster started. From there, the chef said, hey, can you give me some shrimp? Hey, can you give me some crab? And he kept asking this guy on the East Coast, hey, can you get this? Can you get that? And then he's like, hey, I think I got something here.
That's pretty crazy, though. You go from that to just building and building and building. And then when did he decide to take it from, do you know when he went from, obviously Taylor Street changed so much, I don't know when he went from there to the suburbs, but to become so huge is just, it's admirable. That's quite the move.
Yeah, it was, he was living he moved to the suburbs when he was in that age range. Mm-hmm. And I think just what was going on at the time and having no money as the startup, where can we get a property with a building and with a dock and, without paying big Chicago prices. And we're only, the big thing too was everything was being flown to O'Hare. So how can we get somewhere close to O'Hare? We're 15 minutes away instead of driving, from the city. Maybe it'll take you an hour in traffic or more. Yeah. So it was more of, location it was cheaper to be in the suburbs. Plus it was really close to O'Hare.
Yeah. And the seafood industry is interesting. And I think, listen, everyone always wants to know, they want the freshest shit, right?
Yep.
Whether it's produce or anything, but seafood, I feel like everyone is the most obsessed with. Because why, right? Because I think if you don't, you could get sick, right? Is that the thing?
Sure, you can get sick, or the smell of bad seafood is where on your dog walk episode with White Sox Dave. I think he picked one of the worst smells being bad fish.
Yeah, he did.
With all due respect to our friend Johnny Stromaglia, who is just here, I'm going with dead fish. Obviously, he's not in the fish game necessarily, is he?
He's a fishmonger, dude.
But
what do you mean he's not in the fish game?
He is like
Supreme
the leading
Lobster. That's not a fish.
You think they only broker lobsters?
They sell.
We stop with crustaceans. We don't have fresh ahi tuna.
Okay, well there we go.
They did everything.
With all due respect to him.
I think everyone can agree that is a horrible smell, and everyone's probably had a bad experience maybe where they got fish that was fishy or maybe not handled right or something like that, or you're in a seafood counter at a retail store, maybe something didn't smell right. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you want to make sure it's the freshest possible to not be sick and not have an off-putting taste.
Yeah, so that's what I kind of want to get into here because I think it's such an interesting conversation because seafood's such a big variety here, and there's a lot of interesting news stories going on right now with seafood as well. I feel. First off, I'm interested in this. Okay, I went on probably 6 years ago.
Okay.
I went on a cruise with a bunch of my friends. I went on a vacation. A bunch of people from college, group of guys, group of girls, and there was a convention, and it was a seafood convention, and we made friends with these old guys, and they were the coolest guys ever, and they were like big in the seafood game, and what they told me, they're like, hey, listen, they're like nothing's fresh, they're like it's impossible, they're like I understand like what you think. But like it's just impossible. Think about it. Like it has to be frozen. The only place you're really gonna get fresh is maybe like Maine. Are they wrong or are they right?
They're right in regards to some items, but for the most part, all our fresh fish section is daily flown in or trucked in, which takes like a day and a half tops or a day to drive. I would say most items, you could say this, when it's caught on the boat, they throw it in deep ice bins right away to keep it, as fresh as possible. And so can you consider that frozen? Possibly. But as the fresh fish, your swordfish, grouper, salmon, mahi, your fresh fin fish, that's all going to be totally fresh.
Mm-hmm. But the thing was, from talking to them and like walking it through, it makes sense. What are they going to do when they catch it? Mm-hmm. How are you going to temperature control that stuff right away besides like put it in that deep freeze like you said?
Sure.
Like there's no other, at least logically to me, I mean, obviously you're the expert. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if but the way they explained that, I was like, I don't know, that sounds kind of correct, but.
There is certain fish too, like let's say Chilean sea bass. Everyone knows it, fancy on the menu, one of your most expensive items on the menu. That's going to be an item that they go out in basically Antarctica waters, and they take like barges out. The boats are ginormous boats, and they'll go out for months, and they actually catch those fish, process them on the boat, and freeze them right there. So the fresh quote unquote Chilean sea bass season is just little boats going out and is very small amounts. Frozen Chilean sea bass and then gets thawed out is what 95% of the industry is for that fish.
Okay. Yeah. And I think if it's all the same playing field, then that's just kind of what it is, right?
Yeah.
That's just how it is. I don't know. I just found it interesting. And I just kind of wanted to ask you, like, if there's any validity to it. So.
And a lot of people think too, like you go to Mariano's, you go to Jewel, you see shrimp in the counter, fresh, thawed out. Well, if you read the fine print, it'll say previously frozen or, frozen thawed or something. All shrimp, lobster tails, king crab, that's all going to be frozen just because the belly of the beast, the nature of it, what's happening and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then that's what I'm saying. Like, logically, I just don't see how a lot of this stuff can't be frozen at one point. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, a lot of people are just so thrown off by the frozen word, right?
Yeah, they think it's bad, but it's actually fine or good. And most things... pick anything, like a banana. How old is a banana?
Right.
People don't realize it's been months, or an onion or a potato. It's actually been plucked maybe possibly months ago before you eat it. And you think you're eating a fresh banana or a fresh onion.
And you talk about getting sick. Imagine if they weren't doing that shit.
Yeah.
More people, it would be probably pretty bad if they were trying to like rush it out. So.
Sure.
So I found that interesting. Mm-hmm. I found that very interesting.
Yeah.
So how much of the distribution process is working with you work in sales, so I assume you're more going to these local restaurants and stuff, right?
Yep.
Now, whose job is it? What's the other side, like going to like the fishermen?
So we have purchasers. We have about 8 purchasers maybe altogether, and they all have their different niche of what they do. Mm-hmm. Fresh fish, river fish, your salt waters, your smoked fish, frozen, large commodity frozens. And they will work, we only work with the first man. There's no middleman, there's no brokers or anything like that. We work straight with the fishermen or it'll be a company that hires a bunch of fishermen and then we buy from them. And they'll work direct, usually daily, if not like 3 times a week, figuring out what gets, they talk with them directly.
Yeah. How's that side of the job? Did you want to get on that side, or were you like, no, I'll be the guy going to Gibson's and trying to talk to those people?
I have that gift of gab, so I'm definitely that. Do I want to be behind the office calling people and buying it, or do I want to be the guy at Piccolo Sonio in the back of, in the outside garden there having a piece of salmon and talking to the chef, Tony Priolo and stuff like that.
No, for sure. Because that's it's the variety of people you talk to, from the people going on those deep sea fishermen from, like you said, Antarctica to, Alaska to, the other end of it, to the high end restaurants. It's kind of cool to see the
very
evolution.
Broad.
Right? Like,
yeah. So it's like even the show Deadliest Catch.
Yeah.
Sid on the Northwestern, that's who we were doing crab with for a long time.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
No shit.
So we've done stuff with him. We've done a couple like videos with him as well. But I mean, even what's cool about Supreme Lobster as well is we go from the grocery stores. We do Jewel's, Pete's, Tony's, Caputo's. Mm-hmm. We do the Cappy's in, Rainbow Cafes. Mm-hmm. We do the Gibsons, and then we do the Michelin Stars, Alineia's, L2O's next.
Yeah.
So our range from, retail to Michelin Star and everything in between is kind of a cool aspect or feature of what we do.
And I think that always fascinates people. If it's all coming from the same place, what's different?
Not much. Yeah, there's not much different.
And do people ask you that? I'm sure you get that all the time.
People ask us that, yeah. I mean, but it all is how it's handled.
Who's
different levels
it?
of salmon. There's Atlantic salmon that you see mostly in the grocery store. Then you have a Scottish or a New Zealand or a king salmon, which is your most expensive, which is a fancy restaurant's going to use.
Mm-hmm. And if you go, I was just doing my research before I was talking to Johnny. If you go to supremelobster.com, and it shouldn't come to a shock, but it was, if you just look at it and their seafood selection. Once you go to, they have just the shrimp. And you see there's 8 different kinds of shrimp, and they have a map of where all they catch it from. It is kind of crazy to see all these different options. Like, whoever is on the other side, they got to really know what they're doing to know what's the best one to buy, what people like and whatnot, right?
Oh, yeah. So, like, if someone says, the person that doesn't know a lot about seafood, if they say, I want shrimp, that's like saying I want a car, and you go to a dealership, or you go to a CarMax and say I want a car. Guy's gonna go, well, what, So the same thing. I mean, you have wild, you have farm raised. In between those two, you have different types, brands, styles. If it's cleaned or uncleaned, you have it's limitless. Same for lobster tails. You've got cold water, you got warm water, which is always a big debate. Which is better? People come into our store all the time. Warm water versus cold water. So the same thing. Warm water is going to be warmer water, so like Caribbean, Brazil, Panama, or they're called rock lobster tails. And then you have cold water, which are Western Australian, African, and those are going to be a little crisper, a little sweeter, also like double the price.
Okay. What do you prefer?
I will always prefer cold water just to be the fancy of them. But
yeah.
If you never have lobster and you had warm water, you would say, this is the best lobster tail in my life.
Yeah.
It's, I equate it to, having a good choice steak. Wow, this is really good. Yeah. But now you got introduced to a prime cut fillet. And you're like, oh, this is a little bit better now,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it really is fascinating how many different kinds there is. So that's really the difference, is people just knowing what they're doing and how they're preparing it.
And these chefs are good. These chefs, in the Chicagoland area, 95% of them know exactly what they want, what they like, what they don't like. And you'll see that in different parts of the country too. For instance, Mexican brown shrimp is a very specific shrimp that the Midwest really likes. Now you could go to Vegas, for instance, which we're also in. It's all about whites, Mexican shrimp that are whites. And it's all about the color of the shell and the outside when they're raw, in what part of the water they're from and stuff like that. But different markets like different shrimp, and you'll see that with just kind of interesting.
So go into that a little bit, if that's fine. I don't know if that's a topic you want to delve into. So you said you're the second largest. You are in Vegas. You battle in Vegas with the other, with the number one, right?
Sure. Yeah, we deal with a competitor not to be named.
Okay, not to be. All right, I appreciate
like
that.
Michigan, Ohio State.
Yes, yeah.
Don't say them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we battle here, we battle there. You
It's
know,
a battle
every
for
day,
the desert. I kind of like that.
It's a Nike versus Adidas. You know, we go at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
The great thing about us in Las Vegas is we are actually, our hub is in Las Vegas. We're about 2 blocks away from the Raiders Stadium,
Oh, let's go.
which we've been there since 1991, my birth year.
Oh, nice.
And we do everything there is here. It's run separately, but fresh, frozen. But the thing is, our competitor is based in another state. So we have a big advantage on there if you need something same day or whatnot. And I don't know if you want to get into how we got into Las Vegas.
Well, yeah. So you got a spot here, spot in Vegas. Then is that it? Just two?
We have the 2 main hubs here, but then we go all the way down to south is like Indianapolis,
Okay.
South Bend, if you kind of make that like diagonal curve, and then
Okay.
everything north of there. And then we go as far north as Green Bay.
Okay.
We will service everyone but the Green Bay Packers. Just kidding. And then as far west,
That would have been a nice touch.
yeah, just far west is Rockford. And then just, you know, if you kind of make that circle or that moon, we'll do that whole area. And then the whole Las Vegas, like Vegas, Henderson, Summerlin, that, you know, the suburbs all around there.
Yeah. So how'd you get into Vegas then?
So Vegas is interesting. A well-known chef here in the late 80s said, hey, I'm starting at the Tropicana. I want to bring, there's so many people from Chicago coming here and they want walleye, whitefish, lake perch, smelts. And Las Vegas has never heard of that because, I mean, besides a couple of things maybe going to New York, that local fish, the Lake Michigan and stuff, that stayed in Chicago, Wisconsin, Michigan, and that was it. So we started FedExing to Las Vegas. And the Tropicana was our first account. We were FedExing it right to their door. Then word started getting out just like anything. Hey, you know, what are they doing there? What are they doing there? And at the time in the 90s, Tropicana was, you know, the cat's meow. And, yeah, we started FedExing. And then again, just like when we started in Chicago, my grandpa, you know, the light bulb goes off and it's like, hey, I think we could do a business here. You know, how are you doing seafood in a desert? Doesn't really click, right? So you got to fly, everything has to be flown there. There's no truck driving or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's a sensitive thing. And at the time, it wasn't a law that you had to have refrigerated trucks, which is mind-blowing to me. In Las Vegas, you're in the middle of the desert.
That's fucking insane.
It's not a law that, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So we instantly were like, no, that's disgusting. You got to have refrigerated trucks. So we advertise that we have refrigerated trucks. The cold chain never breaks, you know, flown, you know, right from the East Coast to the West Coast, right to our hub, boom, right to your door. So it was a huge expansion right away, and we were doing things that no one else did. Brought local lake fish, brought variety. It took a lot of cabareting and going out and meeting people, you know, with my grandpa and, you know, other people going out there. But then it blew up and really took off, and now we handle MGM, the group, you know, we handle Caesars. We deal with Penn, you know, we do their seafoods and stuff like that. Wins, and you know, we do all the big players. You know,
nice.
We
That's
have
awesome.
great relationships with for a long time.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's like a very Chicago. You just, you know,
and it's all about knowing somebody. You got a guy, right?
Yeah, right.
That's the Chicago thing. I got a guy.
That is,
and that's, I mean, very true to fact for Supreme Lobster and my grandpa, for instance.
to get out there for sure.
Yeah.
So something else we talked about, and the story that I was fascinated by that dropped in October was when they went out to fish crab lake season this year. Like 95% of the crab were just not there.
Yeah. So scientists take biomasses of water, and they'll test the water for particles and what is in the bacteria, the good bacteria in water, and see how many crabs are there. And they could actually tell by taking samples of water what wildlife, by the crab droppings and bacteria that comes from the crab and stuff like that.
Really?
And they're linking it with climate change and warmer waters in the Bering Sea. King crab, snow crab really comes from 3 places: the Bering Sea, northern Canada, and then like Norway kind of areas. And when they go out there and they were testing the water, and then they had some test runs and stuff, they were noticing king crab was almost non-existent and snow crab was non-existent in these areas. And they noticed they went so far out to sea. So, and what kind of interesting as well is that the season only really made news this year for not being fished, but it didn't get fished last year or the year before. So this is kind of like 2.5, 3 years of no fishing. And like people like Sid, the Northwestern, and a lot of those fishing towns, that is all they have. They have a diner, they have fishing, and that's it, right? Mm-hmm. So they have to readapt theirs, and those boats are ready for king crab and snow crab. They're not made for long line fishing or whatnot. So a lot of those guys are having to adjust and fish for cod and different species because they just shut the season down. They're hoping if they shut it down completely, they'll start migrating back or start growing more and quicker. But it's a huge problem. So there's really no United States crab in America left. So the only thing that's here, so the Bering Sea is obviously Alaska and Russia next to each other. They share the Bering Sea. That's the same crab. It's where it gets brought into is what it's product of, right? Yeah. Just like Gulf of Mexico, if it gets brought into Mexico or it gets brought into Texas or Florida, that's what property it is of, right? Or the origin.
Yeah.
Russia doesn't have many laws or standards on what needs to be done. So they could bring in as much king crab as they want, and they're going out there and fishing the king crab. But now with the embargo going on with the whole Russian and Ukraine war, you can't bring in anything from Russia. Mm-hmm. So anything that was brought in since the embargo happened, that's it for king crab. So we're seeing people that have king crab left, their offers dwindling down on the sizes or the amounts left. You're going to start seeing prices start to creep up now with the supply and demand. And as long as this war goes on, or the embargo, I should say, with Russia and U.S. season not fishing, we're not really going to see king crab. If this goes on another year, let's say, you're going to start seeing king crab almost non-existent.
So king crab in America is just going to disappear.
Yeah, until the season starts coming back.
Or the embargo and the war.
And people have tried the Norwegian crab, and it never's really taken off here. It's kind of a little bit of a different species. Now, there is a little crab out there. They're doing like some golds and browns, but very small. And what people want is the red king crab, the big stuff. You go to Gibson's, you get that huge big leg,
mm-hmm.
The wow factor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you give this another year or not, it's going to be, going away real fast.
Wow.
And people, they're not really talking about it yet.
No. Is there a do you know when? When would be?
It all depends on how fast these people are using it. There's a lot of people that won't eat or won't sell the Russian king crab because it's Russian product. Mm-hmm. So that's slowed it down quite significantly. But it's still, in my guess, it would be, we talk a year from now, king crab's going to be very scarce and very, high priced.
But when's the next fish? So when are we going to know if they're going to?
The next season we'll find out this fall.
This fall.
So 23 fall, you'll find out what's going on.
Okay. So they're hopefully making maneuvers here, though, to kind of make sure that we get some this time around, though. But if it is climate change, what the fuck could they do?
It all depends on. It really comes down to the scientists in the NOAA and in the fisheries. It goes down to government. It's when's deer season or when it's very government regulated on trying to keep it sustainable as possible.
Now obviously that affects them greatly. How much does it affect you guys? Like, are you guys is this keeping your grandpa up? Like, is he like, what are we gonna do? No king crab? Or is it just like, we'll just beef up the salmon?
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's another SKU that we carry. So if we're out, the other guy's out. What are you gonna do? There's always different crab. There's snow crab and Dungeness crab and stuff like that. That's snow crab season's out, but there's still a lot out there in different parts of Canada you can get stuff from. So just like anything, you got to adapt,
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy, though. I remember when I saw that story, I was like, wait, what? I feel like that's not.
Yeah, and people in the industry, we all kind of laughed at the point of they're only talking about it now. In all of COVID, it was closed. For 2 years, and no one really mentioned it. You got to deep dive to find a small article about it. But now that COVID's kind of on the back burner, people are starting to talk about different stories again. Now they're talking about the crab crisis.
Probably, yeah. COVID's on the back burner, and because obviously the embargo, like you said, maybe that's why as well.
Correct.
And I don't know, because there was also some conspiracy too, right? That wasn't. I remember I read that people thought that Russia was taking those crab. I don't know.
Well, they're fishing the same sea.
Yeah.
And Russia just goes crazy on fishing it. And could that be a problem? Sure, they could be overfishing it because they don't have governmental regulations like the U.S. has, which that could be a problem.
Yeah. How much is on you guys to like really look into that kind of shit? Like the
sustainability aspect of it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually a large part of it.
Really?
Yeah, and especially in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, sustainability has been like a huge word, and making sure like the longevity of these fish, are right. We have USDC inspectors, that check some stuff, but we have QC department of like 3-4 guys that are going over everything. We have people that go and check the vendors where we get our stuff from overseas in Asia. You got people that they go East Coast, West Coast, Florida. They go and check these places out, what's going on, and
because we did. I had Chief and I, and we had a deep sea fisherman on from Florida. I don't know if you listened to that one we did. Like, did you watch that Seaspiracy thing?
No, I
doc.
Oh, the Seaspiracy. Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that? And I don't know.
Yeah, it was very good the way it was done.
Yeah.
Was it one-sided and not given a chance?
And I'm interested. If you think it's one-sided, say it, because I'm always interested to hear different perspectives.
Yeah,
because I don't fucking know. Like I'm listening to what they're saying.
I think it was one-sided. Strictly. Looking at bad. And then, for instance, an animal dies when they're fishing or something. Like, of course, it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Can we find out the best possible way so it doesn't happen or limit, a dolphin dying? No one wants to see a dolphin die. Of course.
No. Yeah.
But is it gonna happen when you're fishing? Yeah, it's probably gonna happen. Same for hunting or anything like that. Is something gonna happen in the crossfires? It might happen. Do we want it to happen? Absolutely not.
No,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, making it a huge deal of I remember it kind of at the end of the documentary, like Scottish salmon and the Faroe salmon, and it was like bloody mess and all these fish dying and stuff like that. But at the same token, I mean, you could argue fish were made just like cows were made or chickens were made. You got to eat, and we're eating it for a reason, right? It was meant to be on for the It was very. I thought it was well done. It was a good documentary. But I just felt like it was one-sided. Like, give these people a chance, or he came independently to a couple places, knocked on doors, and no one talked to him. Well, did he have credentials, or did he set up meetings? It's kind of no one wanted to comment on this, or no one wanted to talk. Well, how hard did you go and try to get a sit down with someone, or did you go and talk to government, regulators and stuff like that?
And to me, the craziest shit was that shark fin soup stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that was just wild.
Yeah.
Like that like a flavorless item, and
yeah,
whatnot.
that's a huge delicacy in the Asian markets and stuff like that.
That's wild.
Now, that kind of stuff's terrible, when they were showing the videos of Asia and stuff. Now, that kind of stuff, that's why we go overseas and we see the plants we work with, and we only work with BAP certified, MSC certified,
for sure,
5-star.
For sure.
We make sure, just in any industry, there's bad people, there's good people.
Totally.
So you just gotta weed that out, and you gotta take it really serious, on this whole sustainability. I was in Florida once, seeing a vendor, and they told us, come at 8 a.m. We got 2 boats coming in. You got grouper, snapper, shark, everything. So we're really excited. I go with my dad. We pull up. We meet him. We pull up. Like 2 or 3 pickup trucks come. They got like a little siren on. We're like, what the heck is going on here? And it was the government coming. I forget which section of it, but making sure they were doing everything to code or properly, legally.
Yeah.
And they brought out it looked like a beer pong table with a measuring tape, and they measured every single fish to make sure, let's say the grouper had to be, pick a number, 30 inches long or longer to be legally caught. They measured and weighed every single measured every single fish to make sure it was legit.
Yeah, dude. Listen,
it was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do. That's
for sure. For sure. I went to and I'm pissed I missed the video when they shot with you guys. Like, they're watching that shit. I went to the Devanco plant like a couple over the summer, and they do like a lot of the meat distributing around the city, and they're making gyros and shit, and they have like a dedicated parking spot for like the same thing, like a government. I forget exactly what the fuck it was, but the same thing. Like,
USDC, maybe.
yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, where that guy, he could just pull up at any time, and he comes there every day.
Yep.
Like, I remember they were spinning the gear out, dude. They were and I had to wear a fucking, like, a coat and, like, everything on there. And I was like, oh, like, you know, like, no, you got to, like, this is very strict, like, whatever. And then they were spinning the gear. Like, I've never seen, like, you know, like, put the gear on the spit.
leg.
And they were spinning it to put it on. I was like, yo, can I take a video of that? It's like, no. Like, this is, like, something where if you do, like, any phones out or anything, like, it'll instantly, like, it's very serious.
Really?
So, like, yeah, like, I get it. Like, there's definitely more restrictions. It's not the Wild Wild West where, like, a lot of people, like, thinks where, like, oh, no, there's you need to crack down on all these places, but I don't know.
And we get the, you know, the health department comes in, you know, you know, monthly, I would say, and checks in, or, you know, we do our Silicur audits and stuff like that, you know, you got to pass and go through, which, you know, you have to do. And you never know who's going to knock on that door. So you always,
exactly.
You can't play games. You can't do anything.
You can't, and I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And that's where I'm saying, like, you guys are held to, like, a big standard. So I understand. And obviously there's that other side, like we just talked about, where, you know, you do see everyone watches those docs and you see that side. But there are other points where you guys are, like, being, and you're not even with that side. That's what I'm lumping you with that. I shouldn't be doing that, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally.
Going back to crab though, I've had this debate many times, crab or lobster.
To me, I'll take crab. Are you saying personal preference?
Yeah, like if you're like as a seafood guy, if someone's, you know, at the table, like you have, like, and I going to dinner with buddies and people are like, oh, what do you know, I don't know, man, I'll take fucking crab legs 10 times out of 10, and it's like, I don't know, you know. If
I'm doing it at home, I'll do king crab 10 out of 10, just because you don't have to worry about messing it up, because it's already, you know, done basically. I guess ordering in a restaurant, I will pick lobster tails. Just because they know how to do it perfectly, and I'd, you know, rather have it done the right way from a professional. Yeah. But king crab, I would say, is always more fun, you know, bring into a big party or something, you know, bring a big thing of king crab. Everyone loves cracking them open, or we'll split them long ways. So it's actually the meat just pulls out, you know, that's always fun as well. Yeah. It's a win-win, right?
I think so.
So you want a Lambo or Ferrari? I don't think there's not a wrong answer there.
Sometimes, but I just think, you know, crab legs are a lot of work a lot of times.
Crab legs are a lot of work.
They're a lot of work.
But if you get them done the right way, you got to get them split. Now Now you're just pulling it out like a piece of meat, or
that's a fancy place that splits them.
That's a fancy place. You gotta have the good. You gotta have the good stuff.
Exactly.
Or you come to Supreme Lobster in our retail store. We'll split them for you.
Will you?
Yeah.
Go to Supreme Lobster. What's the address?
220 East North Avenue.
There you go.
And we have a grocery store, retail store open to the public, you know, open Monday through Saturday.
Oh, that's great, too.
Yeah, so you can come in there. I mean, Christmas and New Year's just went by. That the line was out the door, 50 to 100 deep at all times, you know. But, yeah, it's open, you know, 6 days a week, and you can get everything, the same seafood as your favorite restaurants are getting. There's no, you know, the same seafood that we're packing for the restaurant orders is the same seafood you're going to be buying from us.
Yeah, for sure. Why on the website? Why are there so many names for oysters? I was blown away by that.
I would challenge anyone. We have the strongest, largest oyster program in the country, and that is I'm very confident in saying that. Our oyster guys, we have 3 different guys that buy oysters, and from East Coast and West Coast, we probably have about 30 to 40 different varieties in-house at all times. In the catalog's over 100 that we do bring in. Everything is a little bit of a different species of oyster, and every little thing you do different, it could be called something different. Now that could be a different piece of land, different area it's grown, if it's wild, if it's farmed, if it's bagged, if it's bedded. Bagged being in almost like a burlap bag that they can grow in. Bedded meaning throwing the seed in the sand, and they grow that way. I've gone out there on the boats in like Cape Cod and stuff like that, and they actually like rake them with like a leaf rake, but like a steel and like longer, and they'll scoop them out of the water, and that's how they get them. And they're kind of buried in the sand, and people don't realize the start of oysters, how they kept them when there was no refrigeration back in the day, they dig a deep hole in the sand right at the edge of the water, dig like 5-6 feet deep, and put the oysters all in there, cover it back with sand, and they'd be totally fine. Even though there's not in water, as long as it's like a cool, damp place, they can kind of last months.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, kind of like an interesting tidbit.
That's a fun fact.
Yeah, and for oysters as well, people think like once they're out of the water, you have like 12 hours and they're not going to be good anymore. But oysters actually are very sustainable and they can last a long time and still very fresh out of the water.
That's a fun fact right there.
Yeah, and oysters from where we pull from, I would say you go from upper northeast Canada, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Maine, Boston, Cape Cod, Virginia, Delaware's, and then west coast you do Washington, then you go north to Canada all the way down to Mexico and Baja Bay, California, Baja Bay, Mexico.
Yeah, there's
source from everywhere.
Selection's insane.
New Zealand, we also bring in oysters for as well, which is called a Coromandel, which is like one of the fanciest oysters you can get. But yeah, we have big pride in our oyster program, and it's awesome to go to these restaurants when you see shout out Gibson's. You'll see like we do all their oysters. We do a great oyster program with them, and you'll see the East variety, the West variety, which is always fun to see.
That is cool. So I'm sure you're at the facility a lot.
Yeah.
What's the fish smell?
There is no fish smell in my nose. After you work there for a while, you're permanently done.
Yeah.
Now, when I get home, my 2-year-old walks up to me and says, "Daddy, fishy, fishy, Daddy." So there is a smell. I just don't smell it. My grandpa says it's the smell of money. That's what it is. Oh yeah, it's there. It's If you go on vacation, you go to Florida for a week and you come back that first day, 6 a.m. you walk in the door and you're like, oh, hello, yep, I'm back.
I'm back.
Good morning.
I'm back.
But after that, you're fine.
Yeah.
I do get a kick out of if we ever give a tour. Someone comes in really nice clothes. They have the nice, pea coat or something on. We all laugh knowing like, man, you are going to leave here and that coat is just absolutely ruined.
Yeah. So it's like smoking, huh? It's like smoking.
Oh, it's like smoking a bar, 20 years ago. It's not coming out. You got to get it dry cleaned.
Yeah, dude. I always like, even when, the Hagen's, do you guys do them?
Yeah.
I love that place.
Yeah.
On Montrose over there. You just walk in there to pick up your shit, and you're just 20 minutes in there. You're walking out, and you stink like it. So,
oh yeah,
that's the game. That's
smoked fish as well. You can't get that smell of smoked fish out.
Yeah, that's just the seafood game, man. It's a shame White Sox Dave, he's in the Dominican right now. You guys were going to do a caviar taste test.
Yeah, we'll have to do that in the future. Do a little. He didn't get to come. We FaceTimed him when. The boys came to Supreme and did the tour. But we'll do a caviar tasting soon. We'll do some fancy caviar for them.
Yeah. So what's the deal with caviar? I don't know if I've had it either.
Well, you will when he comes back. We'll do a little tasting.
Yeah. We
work with Petrosian caviar, and there is 100 different kinds, 100 different brands. A common thing is people say like beluga. I want beluga, which is from a whale, which is illegal. But people say like, oh, I want beluga caviar. Well, you don't, because it's from a whale and that's legal.
I think we talked about this on the pod once. Yeah.
So, sure. Is there probably a black market for it somewhere in America? Yeah, probably. Of course. Just
definitely
like anything.
Somewhere. Yeah.
But no, you have, 100% of it nowadays is sustainable. There's farms for all of this, different sturgeons. You have color of the ball, the size of the caviar ball. It's an awesome, totally different world, the caviar world. And when the caviar guy comes out, it's just it's a lot. And people think it's all fancy. It's not all fancy. There's a lot of very priced right caviar you can get. There is also crazy fancy stuff. I know Carl took I gave him a good joke, and when we did the caviar tasting during the tour, I had one and he cracked it open and he takes a big bite. He said, "Did you just open that?" And he looked like he was about to shit his pants. He's like, "Was I not supposed to?" I was like, It's like $1,000 little jar of caviar. And that was just a display just to show you guys.
Petrosian. And you are going at about probably just under $1,000. About $1,000 jar of caviar. You're supposed to open that. Wait, were we? No, that was for a special. I'm kidding. That was fucking good. You're good.
He shit himself on that one,
That was
but
funny.
it was a good time.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
That was a funny clip, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll do a caviar tasting. The best way, my personal way, is put it on a potato chip, a Ruffles potato chip.
Oh, really?
That's
Okay.
my favorite. So a lot of people put it on their hand too, so they get nothing but like the taste of it. Or people have the fancy board with the chopped up egg and all the fancy boy stuff.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's definitely a fancy boy thing.
Yeah.
All right, Johnny, this was good.
This is fun.
Yeah,
Thanks
this
for
was
having me
fun.
on.
Anything
Talking
we didn't
seafood.
get to? Any fishing fun fact? Any Supreme Lobster fun fact we didn't get to that you want to get out there?
Fun
Before we
fact
wrap
for
down?
seafood? I think we kind of hit everything. I appreciate you guys having us on.
Oh, of course, man.
If you're in the Chicagoland area, come check us out at our retail store, 220 East North Avenue in Villa Park. And if you're chefs or restaurants or anything like that, call us up. We'll take care of you. We deliver, 6 days a week, and customer service is our number one thing. We take it very, very seriously. And coming from our humble roots, that we take care of our people. We took care. We were big believers of the Barstool Fund when Dave is doing it and stuff like that. And a crazy small world was our production manager that works the podium. His in-laws owned a restaurant. I can't think of the name. It was the Spanish restaurant.
Que Rico?
Yeah,
Que
Que
Rico,
Rico. And Dave, that was one of the places in the Barstool Fund. And it was like, whoa, what a small world of getting everything together. And as soon as we heard that, we wanted to donate and wanted to help on that, because that's like a great cause, and that really hits home of with COVID and everything.
Oh, yeah.
What we all were with together.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, it's awesome. Awesome story.
Yeah.
Your grandpa just selling lobsters, going into the second biggest distributor in the United States. So,
yeah.
No, you guys are great people. So, go check them out, North Avenue.
One last thing. It's my mom's birthday today.
Go do it.
Happy birthday, Mom.
There you
Love
go.
you.
On the podcast.
Thanks, guys. Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Johnny. Supreme Lobster. Go check them out, everybody. Great stuff. And listen, I'll tell you what, you've already had them if you live in this city. I can promise you.
Guarantee it.
I guarantee it.
If you've ever had seafood in Chicagoland area, you've had Supreme.
You've had Supreme. Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you.
This was fun. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. That's it for today. We'll catch you guys next time.